You were the favorite to win the 1984 Olympics, but you got silver. I watched that match several times. You probably have it playing in your head. So there was a nice change of direction by your opponent, German Frank Winecki.
Yeah.
It was a fake right Uchimata, and then to a left drops Seoinage. How did that loss feel?
Devastating is not, it's not enough really. Because, the strange thing is coming into that Olympics, I was tired, really tired. So my mental state wasn't the best, wasn't certainly the same as it was coming into the previous. And I remember thinking I just need to get this over with, and then I'm going to have a break and just have a rest, and that's totally the wrong attitude. It's just not good for going into an Olympic Games. And so I was coming in there with a different mindset. And I remember every match that I had, I was winning well, but I was winning with a struggle. It was really not. I'd fought Novak, and I was pretty of France, who was one of the strongest physically. That was in the quarterfinals. I beat Brett Barron by an ippon. I arm locked him. I won my first match by ippon as well, and then Michel Novak I was fighting of France, and I was lucky to win it. I was up, I was scored on him, but I was like starting to defend and just everything that I talked to you about, and then just about held on, and then I won, and so him and I were talking afterwards, like some years afterwards, and he said, I was close, wasn't I? Yeah, but not close enough. No. I didn't mean it.
Yeah.
But I had to say it, right?
Of course.
So no, he was right, and it was one of those. So I was through to the semi-final. I fought Lesak in the semi-final and I'd fought him in the semi-final of the Worlds as well. I'd never gone time with him, I'd always beaten him fairly easily and by ippon, and that went time. So I was, just glad to get it done, and I was in the final then against Frank Winecki of Germany, and I'd beaten Winecki before, but he was just a young German coming through. And when I started the final, I thought, right, I started. All my techniques just that little bit off. Nothing was coordinated. I can't really explain why it was just a little bit off. I see it so often now with a lot of the guys that are going for second, third Olympic Games, and I see their technique just not quite there, and they're struggling, and I know when they're, I know what they're going through, and I kind of empathize with them.
Well, it felt like you were dominating that final.
I dominated it. Yeah, I was winning. Yeah, I was. Yeah. And actually, if it had got another minute and a half, it would have been all over, and I would have been Olympic champion, and it would have been done. He wouldn't have batted an eyelid, right? Because he would have fought me really, really well, and he would have. We talked about it afterwards, and he said it was just my good day for me, and he knows. He was very respectful. Yeah. This guy is very respectful.
He was surprised almost. I mean, not almost. He was very surprised and celebrating like a surprise.
Yeah, jumping up and down, like, he just, and, you can look at that, can't you? Go, well, it wasn't ippon, but, would I got it back? I don't know. But I think that actually taking the pressure off, because that was another thing as well, pressure of being favourite. And I see that with a lot of them. And, the great champions, the ones that keep coming through, Kapelic, there's a guy, he can look very ordinary, and then comes the big tournament and he'll win it.
The tragedy of the Olympic Games. I mean, you were the favorite, and just like that, like split moment, you lost it.
Split moment, devastating. And lived it. Probably not every day, but Nikki, my wife, will tell you that woken up in sweats, and I think they contributed as well, because I had a period of my life after where I was drinking too much, and I think kind of when I look back, kind of led into though that kind of dark period in my life, and I never, ever, ever, did it go through my mind anything else, but it definitely affected me. And I was on a downward kind of spiral in a lot of different ways, and would still, even, I mean, we have an amazing marriage and we have an amazing family, and everything's great, but I still wake up sometimes and I'll say, I've just dreamt, that, and it's the same reoccurring dream where I'm trying to get somewhere and I'm trying to put it right, and I've got this chance of putting this Olympic final right, in this dream, I've got a chance of doing it, but I can't get there, and the traffic's stopping me, or something stops me, and and then I wake up and I'm sweating, and and you think, well, after all this time, that's not possible, but it is, and it happens.
Yeah, I mean, in the match itself, there's that feeling. For me, just watching it, like you're going for throws, you're almost getting there with the throws, and it's almost like he's going for a kind of crappy Uchimata, and then you're just like you're stopping, you're blocking it, and all of a sudden, I mean, that's the beauty of the Olympics. He finds it in himself to switch in that, like, against a favorite, against sort of the great British judoka, just finds the perfect drop Seoinage.
His team doctor and coach, he came up to me afterwards and said, "I'm just really sorry." And that's all they said is, "I'm just really sorry." They were sorry because, obviously the obvious sadness about that, and of course, everybody takes their, I went actually 3 weeks later, the German Open. So he had to compete in the German Open 3 weeks later. So I went over to fight him and beat him in the final of the German Open. And it didn't do anything for me because it was a much tighter match. He was a lot closer. He had a lot more confidence coming in. So he fought me a lot differently. And then it was me pulling it back and just managing to win in the final. And I thought, well, that might appease. It appeased nothing. Didn't do anything.
When you give your whole life to judo, and your love of winning, it's crazy how much the Olympic Games mean.
It means so much, and I think, but I've got to say this, and this is honestly, if it meant that if I'd have won that Olympic Games and it had changed my life into a different direction, which I probably would have not competed in the '88 Olympic Games then. All right, so if it had changed my life, and then I didn't meet my wife, and I didn't have my family that I've got now, there's no, I wouldn't swap what I've got now for anything.
Well, part of the demons that you've gotten to know because of those losses is part of probably the central reason that made you the man you are. A legend of the sport. You could have been not that. Because an Olympic gold is just an Olympic gold.
Yeah. And it is, isn't it? And I think that there's a lot of Olympic champions and world champions that win and then are forgotten. And I said to Nikki, I said, my wife, I said, I don't want to be forgotten and I want to be remembered. So if I'm going to do anything I do, if I'm going to do commentary or whatever it is, or coaching, I want to do coaching to a high level and I want to commentate at a high level. I remember the first commentary I ever did, it was terrible. And I just thought, I've got to do better than this. And I thought, I need to do it well. And I've got to do it professionally.